Yeah, and I do think that there is a way to find balance, and that was very much my experience. My partner and I listened to the Multi-Amory podcast episode about radar. We printed out the form. We went to y'all's website, multiamory.com/radar, where I really recommend other people go to check out this tool we're going to be talking about. But we did that, and it became very clear that myself, as the person who, like, I love Google Drive. I live my life on Google Drive, and I am that organized person with the Google Calendar and who is planning all of these things out. And to her, it felt very sterile that, why can't you just come to me when you have a question? Why can't we just talk about these things as they come up? Why do we have to schedule a time? And I very much get that it felt awkward for her. And so we had to kind of tailor it and blend with it and play with it to find something that fit for us better. But I do think that there is a healthy space in between those two extremes. And while everybody may be a little bit different, that some level of intentionality is important.
Yeah, and I mean it's pretty common to hear that criticism, especially when you talk about scheduling sex or scheduling a particular talk or scheduling a particular time to have a meta communication conversation about your relationship. That yeah, that's the common pushback is that oh, that's inorganic, it's sterile, it's robotic, it takes all the romance out of it, and it's a justifiable criticism. At the same time, the way that I like to think about it is I like to think about it like a party when you go to a party, you have a lot of fun, but it's like someone had to tell you, hey, the party's going to be at this time, this
Sure.
location, this is what you need to wear, this is what you need to bring, this is who you can expect to be there, this is how long it's going to last, because you got to know, is it a barbecue, is it a sex party, is it an Oscar viewing party, like I don't know. And so it's like that's some structure and intentionality around the party, but very few people hear that and think like, oh, that sounds like that's going to be a shitty party if I have to
Right.
get all this information ahead of
Where
time.
there are going to be people who plan to be there
We're going
wearing
to be there at the same
clothes
time.
or
Or
not.
not.
And so I don't want to, of course, I don't think it's okay to totally throw the intentionality and scheduling under the bus. It is that balance, right? Is that you get all the information so that then you're prepared to go to the party and have fun,
Yeah.
where you're not stressed and kind of kept guessing the entire time ahead of time.
Well, I love your metaphor, but I can also just hear my partner's voice in my head when I try to tell her that our monthly check-in is like a party.
I mean, is it not?
We're getting there. We have found that mimosas help.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess that is kind of my next question is how are you having these regular meetings and kind of why?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I would kind of like to delve in a little bit more specifically about
Sure.
the radar process so that,
Yeah.
people have a little bit of a context around this. So, we started the whole journey with radar, which is an acronym. I mean, radar itself is already an acronym, but we made a new acronym for it. This all started, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. We stumbled across this article on Medium that was written by this woman. I'm afraid I'm blanking on her name, but she and her partner were both in software development and product development. And they, at their workplaces, were really used to using the Agile Scrum process. And now, when I say Agile Scrum, some people out there will 100% know what it is, especially if you work in that field. Some people will be like, Agile Scrum, what? I don't even know what that is. And in a nutshell, Agile Scrum is like this kind of workflow process essentially for development that a lot of workplaces use. And that sounds really, really boring, but I promise it gets better. But in this article, this woman and her partner, they decided to kind of apply this workflow process to their relationship. And so, they would establish kind of this once a month meeting that they would have, or they would kind of review what happened in the month before. They would kind of take a look at what's happening in the following month, kind of hash out stuff they wanted to talk about. And they kind of had this little like formulaic process that followed Agile Scrum. And all of us on the podcast, we were like definitely huge nerds and like process nerds and relationship nerds. And we were like, I wonder if this still holds up if you're doing this process with multiple partners or if you're doing it in a non-traditional relationship. Because for as far as we could tell, the woman who originally wrote this article was pretty traditional.
Mhm.
So we kind of did our own unofficial I guess, study period where the three of us on the show decided, like, okay, for a year, we're going to try doing their version of this agile scrum process in our relationships and kind of see how it feels and tinker with it and toy with it and see, exactly just see how it goes. And so, long story short, essentially, after about a year and a half of us all personally trying it out in our relationships with multiple partners, kind of taking notes on like what seemed to work, what didn't, did this serve non-traditional relationships or not. We eventually, kind of using Agile Scrum as the base, kind of came up with our own process that we named Radar. And it's this 5-step process for kind of a formula that you follow once a month. For kind of checking in your relationship and being able to communicate with your partner vulnerable topics like sex, money, family, travel, non monogamy, if that's on your plate, talking about other partners, things like that. And the process kind of takes you through a set number of topics. It takes you through coming up with action points, like actionable things that you and your partner are going to be able to check in on, in a month's time to make sure that we're not just like talking about things and then not doing anything to change them. And then it all closes out with some reconnection time with your partner. So sitting and sharing compliments or appreciation or loving touch or doing some kind of fun activity together that helps you feel close. So it essentially kind of takes you on this journey of being able to go through all these sometimes difficult topics with your partner, check in, communicate, make plans together for like what needs to change or how you can make your relationship better in these different topics, and then kind of ending it out on a good note so that ideally it all feels just good and kind of warm and fuzzy at the end. And so part of the reason why we felt it was so important to develop this and especially to tailor it for non-traditional relationships is we were getting so many people reaching out to us with questions like, kind of like the question that we opened with, which is like, well, I think I'm interested in non-monogamy. How the heck do I bring it up with my partner? Or I'm realizing that this thing my husband has been doing in bed is something I've never liked. When am I supposed to bring that up?
Mm.
Or I've been dating multiple people for a while now, and I just dropped the L bomb with in this one particular relationship. How and when am I supposed to tell like the partner that I live with? Do I wait until it's like over dinner or do I wait till they come home from work? Like when am I supposed to talk about these? That there were a lot of these topics that people just didn't have scripts for. They didn't have a pattern to follow. And so we found that it was just really important for people to be able to create this specific container for talking about these things that happens on a regular basis so that there isn't like a backlog of problems that builds up and a backlog of resentment that builds up until one day someone's sick of it and then just kind of ambushes you with a bunch of problems. It was, with the purpose of being able to minimize like day to day processing about the relationship in order to kind of build space for the two of you to have just like positive time together in your relationship, essentially kind of being able to create the opportunity for it to be like, oh, right, I do want to sit down and like talk with my partner about this annoying thing that's happening with the way we're dividing household labor, but like we're about to go out on date night, so I'm not going to ruin date night by bringing that up, but I know we have a radar in 2 days, so I'll just write it down and then we can take it then. And then that frees you up to be able to enjoy date night or something similar to that. So that was a lot of information about that, but I mean, essentially it boils down to the problem being that we're not really equipped with the tools or given the tools to handle these kinds of conversations regularly, and so as a result, it's all kind of just like left up to chance. It's left until one partner has enough resentment or frustration that they explode, or they don't, or they swallow it for the entire relationship until the relationship ends. And so we really wanted to give people something to follow, something to rely on consistently for being able to track their communication in their relationships.
Yeah, you mentioned that it can, save date night because it gives you an opportunity to sort of like put that in a box and know that it's going to get opened. And I feel like that is so often the thing that folks miss. It's like they feel as if they are opening this box that is full of all of these scary things. And of course, why would you want to do that? But by creating a box, you're also creating a place to put these things so that they are going to get addressed, but it doesn't have to happen in that exact moment. And you can still have a good date, even if your partner, said something about your mom that just, frustrated you. And you don't want to get into a fight about it right now, but maybe you want to think about it for a little while and maybe bring it up and approach that in a safe place rather than in the car 15 minutes before, dinner with friends is supposed to start or these kinds of things.
Right.
I can tell you that my partner and I put a flower vase in the kitchen and just a, bunch of Post-it notes and a pen next to it. And every once in a while, if something comes up or just whether it's logistical, like, when are we going to buy that turtle for Christmas? What does that look like? We need to talk out logistics. How big of a tank is too big?
That very relatable example.
Right, naturally. Or, something that is a little bit more tense. And so I am curious what kind of maybe modifiers you've seen as you've been talking about this and teaching people this for so long, if there are other examples of people sort of playing with it and making it fit themselves.
I'm also curious how this would, if you've seen this, work with people who maybe have like generalized anxiety, because I know for me, not bringing something up and being even telling myself to wait for days would be a very anxious thing. Even if I knew it would be brought up eventually, the concept of this is happening, this is going to happen in 2 days, and I'm going to have to bring it up, and they're going to bring stuff up that I don't know about. It feels like it could potentially be very anxiety-inducing.
Sure.
So are there any modifications that you've seen people make if that particular angle doesn't work?
Oh yeah, 100%. I've definitely seen people who kind of customize the process where sometimes they'll change it to be like, we're going to do mini radars once a week, and it's going to be kind of like a secondary date time where we're going to make it positive. We're going to kind of pad out and build like a little nest around the experience so that we can feel warm and comfortable and kind of in a safe space. Like maybe we're going to make a ritual around it where we're going to make like a little pillow for it and like be in our pajamas when we do just like a mini like half-hour radar on a weekly basis or something like that, in order to kind of minimize the like, oh gosh, like our next radar is like 2 weeks out and I'm going to be anxious until then, stuff like that. And we've also seen people do things like setting a timer on certain topics so that if things are feeling a little bit too tense, then you can, essentially have a timer and you can kind of set a time for being able to kind of check in with that particular topic later or things like that. And we've definitely seen, people who either have, generalized anxiety or who tend to struggle with anxiety around communication, that for some people, there's actually kind of an opposite effect in the sense that having this set container takes off the pressure off of them to decide, when do I bring this up? Because often that can be another thing of like, not only do I have the topic I want to bring up that maybe feels a little bit vulnerable, but now I also have the added level of being the decision maker of how am I going to approach this? When am I going to catch my partner at a good moment? Do I need to check my partner's mood to see if they had a good day, bad day? How long am I going to hang on to this? That some people find an opposite effect, that it's like that responsibility is now off their shoulders because it's done, it's set, I know when it's going to be. And so now I don't need to worry about chewing on it and figuring out and like worrying about when to bring it up, things like that. Ultimately, like the good thing is that this process that we came up with, like it's not set in stone. We like to make it like very customizable for each relationship and each person. The important thing being like, however you need to modify it to get yourselves to actually do it, that's more important than having it to be to a T to like how we talk about it in the podcast.
Yeah, which is incredibly important because, people are messy. And for many of us, this is our first time to really, I guess, pay attention to intentional conversation. Again, like we said at the top, so much of this feels like stuff that people often assume they should know. If they were healthy, if they were in the right relationship, if they had the right partner, that this should all just be magical and easy. And so I think that there's a little bit of a reality check oftentimes in knowing that, some of these topics are going to be uncomfortable and some of this is going to be unpleasant, but that it's a tool and an opportunity to change everything that's not this meeting. The meeting doesn't exist for the meeting's sake. It exists for the relationship and can provide so much opportunity. So I have to say that I'm a big fan of any form of intentional conversation and communication among couples, and in any kind of relationship. I think there's a lot of value in having a set time to just get together, even if it is to just share a pizza and kind of casually talk through the calendar over the month, even if it's not, using all of the forms and the tools and the different things.
Yeah. And I think there's something also to be said about, having that process be regular and almost ritualized in order to kind of rebuild some neural pathways that we may have either individually or just kind of collectively from the culture that we grow up in around just intentional communication. Because I
Mhm.
think so many of us, we're just so socialized to kind of expect that it's like if your partner approaches you and says, "Hey, we need to talk. Let's set a time and place to do it." That the response is not like, "Oh, yay." The response is, "Oh, shit."
Yeah,
Like, what did I
that's
do?
pretty
What's
universal.
going to happen now? Like, it's pretty universal. And
Or
so,
I have sweats now.
Yeah,
You just said that and I'm sweating.
I think I'd
yeah.
rather just be dumped than get a text that says, "We need to talk."
Yeah, no.
Nobody likes the
Uh-huh.
"we need to talk" text.
Yeah.
Because
But
then at that point, even if it's something innocuous, you're mad at them. For
Right.
defensively mad. Yeah, defensively mad ahead of time.
Yeah.
But I think it is so important to get people to have the like repetitive internalized experience with a partner of we went somewhere a little bit scary, we went somewhere a little bit nerve-wracking, and then at the end of it, we figured out what our next steps were. We hugged each other, we gave each other compliments, we appreciated each other, and ultimately we got to the other side feeling good. And it's kind of like being able to make that attachment in your brain of went to a scary place, went to a vulnerable place, but it ended up being okay. Neither of us
Mhm.
died. We ended it feeling good. We ended it feeling bonded. We ended it feeling close, which is different from, I think, if you need to tackle a vulnerable topic and you're just kind of going at it without a plan or without any kind of structure around it, is that you do run the risk of, I opened up this topic, we got into a fight, and we didn't repair it, and then that was the end of that topic.
Right.
And now either I'm never going to bring up that topic again, even if I really need to, or that's been some like, irreversible repair that's just hanging there. We didn't do anything to be able to kind of close the loop and kind of close the circle around this conversation. And so I
Mhm.
do think that at least I've definitely found for myself personally and for like a lot of the clients that I've worked with that with repetition, a process like radar does start to feel really, really good because
Mhm.
at the end of it, it's going to feel good. I know that at the end of it, we have plans to, watch our favorite movie together and cuddle and then have sex afterwards. Or I know at the end of it is when we're going to sit and share a glass of wine and talk about all the things we love about each other. Like you start to slowly get that association that, the journey is going to be worth it in the
Mhm.
end.
Yeah, so whether people are sort of tailoring and playing with radar as y'all have it laid out, or whether they're doing their own invention, I'm hearing from you that repetition and a little bit of consistency is one of the important hallmarks. Are there any other sort of sine qua nons or just anything that you feel is vital to this process?
Yeah. So something that we say on the show pretty frequently is that any relationship tool or communication hack can be weaponized,
Sure.
unfortunately. And so relationship tools or communication hacks like can't be relied upon to like fix a completely broken or toxic relationship,
Mhm.
right? And so that's just the thing to bear in mind is that in order for some kind of regular check-in or intentional communication to work, it's like you both kind of have to have some willingness. Maybe not you're both not super enthusiastic jumping for joy about it, but like both partners have to have some kind of willingness to like give this a shot and to communicate at all. Because if you have a partner who's just like uncommunicative or shuts down right away, like there's only going to be so much usefulness out of trying to have a talk like this. And so that's something to bear in mind that, going into this space and kind of having this communication journey with your partner, it does require some mutual compassion and understanding and respect. It is going to require, in the process of it, like probably some meta communication as well, as in conversations that you have about the communication that you have, And so radar doesn't exist just in a vacuum of like, just do this communication tool and then everything's going to be great. It's kind of like you have to be bearing in mind everything else that's going on in your relationship as well, as far as like what you bring to the table and how the two of you communicate with each other. But I suppose that that's true of probably pretty much any communication tool.
Yeah, in theory, but I think it is good to be reminded that there are no silver bullets and that relationships are going to take not just effort, but goodness of fit and a little bit of luck and a whole lot of love. I mean, I don't mean to be trite about it, but it is the truism that our relationships are not sent down from God. They're not perfect. They're not, matches made in heaven or Cupid's arrow or anything else. There is the reality that there's going to be some friction, that there's going to be relationships that end, and there can still be a lot of value there. But the reality is a little bit of pain requires acceptance.
Yeah, and so I think something else that is also really important to bear in mind when tackling a radar or something similar is this isn't our concept, but like the concept of halt, of knowing when to halt. And so HALT is also an acronym. We actually expanded it to be like HALT. So that stands for, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, drinking, or sick. And basically, if you can check any of those boxes, it's probably time to take a pause on the conversation and attend to that. And so that's another thing to bear in mind when tackling a radar or tackling these kind of vulnerable topics, that if you haven't eaten in 8 hours, or if you stayed up too late the night before, or if the two of you are drinking, and now maybe a mimosa is okay, but if it's like 3 mimosas in,
Right, you
and
want to be
coincidentally the conversation
Yeah.
starting to go a little bit nasty, then like maybe that's a time to kind of pause and take a step back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you developed this, about 3 years ago?
I would say the start of development was probably about 2 years ago. Yeah.
About 2 years ago? Okay. How has it had an impact on your relationships? I mean, what does it feel like when this is a muscle that you've been flexing and working through and really utilizing for that period of time?
Oh my goodness. It just hands down, and I promise this isn't like a sales pitch or me just like trying to blow our horn or anything like that. But seriously, like every time I complete a radar, I'm just like, thank God I have this tool under my belt. If I had nothing else, I'm so glad that I have this, because again, it's so freed me on a day-to-day basis that it's like when I'm having a bad day, like what happens to me a lot is like I'll wake up in the morning, I'll be really cranky, and then I'll come out to the living room and I'll see that my partner's like left some trash out from the night before, and I'm like, oh God damn, it's so terrible. I'm leaving the trash out, and like so cranky. And then I'll like open up my radar document, my private for myself radar document on my phone. I'll write down, we need to talk about like cleaning up trash at the radar, yada, yada, yada. And then the radar comes 2 weeks later and I look at my notes and I'm like, oh gosh, I was really cranky that day. Like 99% of the time, this is fine. This isn't even a topic I need to tackle, really. Whereas I think if I didn't have that tool, that I would probably right away turn around and start taking that out on my partner, right? And it would be like, we need to talk about this right now. You never do this, and I'm always doing this. And so it helps just to have kind of a built-in system of like some processing time to let my emotions die down, to let the irritation die down, and actually sit and think, oh, is this actually an issue that needs to be brought up, or is it not? Is it just because I'm in a bad mood and particularly sensitive that day? And sometimes that's the case. And sometimes it is the case like, oh, yeah, no, this is something that needs to be brought up and needs to be worked on. I definitely also love that it has this kind of built-in stage where you figure out actionable things, because something that happened in my relationships a lot in the past was we sit down, we hash out like, okay, oh, there's this thing that's been going on, like you're uncomfortable with this and I'm uncomfortable with this, and we need to come to some kind of compromise, and we talk it out, we talk out our frustrations, and then great, cool. And we leave the conversation with person A thinking that we're going to change in this direction, and person B thinking we're going to change in this totally other direction. And we didn't come together to actually figure out, okay, what's the next step? What can we actually both do? And to make sure that things are changing, plus this kind of built-in deadline of like a month from now we're going to have another radar where we're going to look back and be like, oh hey, we decided that we would try this thing, we would try scheduling this thing a month in advance, or we would try being more kind to each other around this particular topic. How did that go this last month? Did that work? Did that not work? If it didn't work, let's figure out something that does work. But again, that there's this framework to rely on so that things don't just kind of get swept under the rug, or we're mismatched in what we thought the solution was, or we talk about it, but then nothing ever changes. And so as a result of that, like when I look at so I have two separate like Google Docs that I keep because I have two partners that I've been doing Radar with for years separately. And when I look back through those documents about like the things that we made action points about, I'm just floored by like, oh my gosh, we did so many things. We figured out so many things. We figured out these ways to make the relationship better or so that we could avoid having this repetitive fight. And that's also really nice to kind of have this history of seeing, wow, like we've come so far, and we have this strong sense of efficacy that we can tackle things because we've gotten through so many things in the past. So those have been my favorite parts for sure in my own personal relationships.
Yeah, I love that idea of being able to kind of look back on these things, because we so often like to sort of black out, any negative experiences. Or, I mean, we even use that term negative when we're talking about certain feelings. And to be able to recognize that there's been progress, there's been success, that, you've been able to accomplish and move forward on a lot of things, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, 100%.